Hello and welcome, my name is Peter, and in this video I'm going to show you how to change spark plugs on your Audi TT Mark II 2-liter TFSi engine. So let's begin. First thing we need to do is take the engine cover off, and to do that we are going to remove this clamp. And after that, we need to unplug the mass airflow sensor connector, get the wires out of the way, and disconnect these two metal clamps holding in the intake hose to the engine cover. After that, remove the hose to the side so it sets free from the engine cover. Disconnect the air intake hose from the cover, and now we have to pull really hard upwards on each of the four corners of the engine cover, since there are 4 mounting points. As you can see, I had to pull really hard. There we go, and now remove the engine cover. As you can see, now we have clear view of the engine. Next thing we are going to do is very carefully disconnect those 4 connectors connecting the ignition coils to the wiring harness. So you have to be careful because those clips really tend to snap really easily. So you have to just try and disconnect each one and pull the wiring harness a bit backwards each time. As you can see, I'm using flathead screwdriver to kind of unlock the connectors and pull slightly towards the back of the engine to disconnect the connectors. And now once all of the 4 connectors are disconnected, we are going to bend the wiring harness a bit backwards so we have better access to the ignition coils. I always tend to clean the area I'm working on with, this is like a normal brush you use to paint walls and stuff, and it's actually really good way to remove dust and prevent the dust from falling into the spark plugs. After that, we are going to use a really big flathead screwdriver to kind of leverage the ignition coil on one side and using the fingers on the other side to pull them carefully upwards without bending them. As you can see, it works really great. There's a official tool to remove them, but if you don't have it, this is another way to go. Just you have to be careful not to damage it. There's the second one. And yes, what I like to do is just put a piece of paper towel or something that you have near you into these holes so that dust or debris doesn't get into spark plugs. As you can see, I'm leveraging the ignition coil onto the valve cover, and it slides out really nicely. That's the third one. Once again, put the paper towel in so nothing gets inside. Clean out. And you can clearly see I apply pressure upwards with 2 points at least, one with fingers, another one with screwdriver. Next thing what we are going to do is unscrew the spark plugs, and for that it's a 16mm socket, but there is a specific socket made for spark plugs which has a rubber inside which holds the spark plugs in the socket. We're now going to get a new one, put it into the socket, and it won't fall out because the rubber inside the socket is holding it in place. Just put it back in and watch really carefully. I always turn the screws in the opposite direction with a slight pressure downwards. As soon as you hear a click, you will feel that the spark plug, in this case, found its threads, and then you can screw it back in without cross-threading spark plugs holes. That you can use the same trick on screws and it works every single time. Moving on to the second spark plug. Removing and replacing the paper towels as soon as I'm done removing the spark plug prevents from debris coming in. Second new spark plug is coming in. And if you watch carefully, you can see that always turning counterclockwise, couple of turns until I can feel the spark plug finding its threads, makes it really easy to screw it back in. And its job actually only takes you like 15 to 20 minutes if all goes well, if you don't have any difficulties removing the engine cover and if you don't break any of the ignition coil connectors. Also, from the tools that you will need, it's actually just a flathead screwdriver, wrench, and a 16mm socket. On top of that, you will need an extension since the holes are really deep. Here we can see in close that every time I put the spark plug back in, I firstly turn it counterclockwise. Now that the fourth plug is going in, we are almost done with our job. Replacing the ignition coils. Order isn't that important, even though I kept record of which one goes where. So you have to push them all the way in. They are really snug when they are in place. After that, we put back our wiring harness. What I did here is I pulled back all 4 ignition coils a bit up so that harness is much easier to connect. Make sure you connect all 4 connectors at the same time with 2 hands. Make sure that they all click, so they locked in place. And after that, you will be able to push all 4 ignition coils at the same time back. Now that we have ignition coils installed, we are basically done with our job. All that is left to do is screw those 2 screws back in to secure the wiring harness and reverse order installing the engine cover back into the engine. You then need to connect the mass airflow sensor connector and attach 2 hoses for the air intake. I hope you found this video really helpful, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you think there's something I should have done better. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.